They cuffed a Navy war hero on his own boat, without asking a single question. The morning fog hugged the Atlantic like a secret, thick and low, blurring the line where ocean met sky. 12 miles southeast of Savannah, the USCG cutter C-4th sliced through the still waters. Routine patrol. Coffee in tin mugs, quiet talk over radios, weather, buoys, currents. Nothing unusual. Until Seaman Tyler McKnight, binoculars raised, spotted a silhouette. A boat. Drifting, where none should be. "Skipper, you seeing this?" Lieutenant Graham Ricks turned. Through the fog, a fishing boat emerged, fiberglass, 42 feet, paint peeling in tired shades of teal. It rocked gently, too close to a restricted submarine test lane. "Radio it," Ricks ordered. "Vessel south-southwest of buoy T9, this is USCG cutter C-4th, state your name, registration, and intent." Nothing. Second hail, repeat, state your name and purpose. Still silence. Just gulls crying. "He's in a test lane. Prep the boarding team. Bring us alongside." Engines slowed. Bosun's mate Renee Callahan dropped the ladder. McKnight grabbed the line thrower. Hearts ticked louder. As they closed in, gold lettering revealed the name, Mercy Bell. One man at the helm. Black. Mid-40s. Calm. Upright. Hands visible. Navy ball cap. Zipped khaki windbreaker. He didn't panic. Didn't flinch. But the silence, unnerving. "Captain, kill your engine and prepare to be boarded," Ricks called. He complied. Wordlessly. Callahan and McKnight stepped aboard. Sidearms holstered. Straps loose. "Morning, sir," Callahan said. "Name and registration, please." "Leonard Trenton," he said softly, handing clipped papers. Voice calm, nearly lost in waves. "Everything checked out. Clean. Georgia tag. Valid inspection." Ricks nodded for a full search, protocol after silence. "Purpose of voyage? Anyone else aboard? Weapons?" "Fishing," Trenton said, nodding to rods. "Why no radio?" "Mix busted." "Heard you." Couldn't answer. He tapped the cracked radio. Too convenient. Callahan reached for cuffs. Just protocol. Nothing personal. But as steel clicked, a wrongness crawled up her spine. Still, Trenton helped. No resistance. Boarding in progress. Subject secured, Ricks radioed. Below deck, McKnight found bait. Ice. A dented thermos. No contraband. Above, Trenton stood, hands bound, watching gulls. Still calm. Ricks studied him. Something was off. Not dangerous, just wrong. "You fish here often?" "Twice a month. Thunderbolt Marina. Manager knows me." "You ex-military?" "I am." "Branch?" "Navy." "Just saying that, or?" 22 years. "Retired commander." Callahan blinked. "Not bluffing." "Why didn't you say so?" "Wasn't asked." That landed. Hard. McKnight resurfaced. Boats clean. Nothing suspicious. Trenton, still cuffed, stood steady. The air shifted. It felt like they were being inspected now. "ID?" McKnight asked. Trenton nodded to a jacket. Callahan pulled it, license, retired military ID, family photo, Navy portrait. It was him. Ricks keyed into DHS. Trenton watched the sea. Screen loaded. Slowly. Name, Leonard Isaiah Trenton. Rank, Commander, Ret, Service, U.S. Navy, 1996-2018 Clearance, TS/SCI, Expired, Commendations, Navy Cross, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, X2, Combat Action Ribbon Assignments, USS Russell, USS Gridley, Naval Special Warfare Command, 5th Fleet Bahrain. McKnight read aloud. Navy Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. Citation, Rescue Under Fire, Strait of Hormuz. Trenton led 29 civilians to safety, then dove overboard to save 2 crew. Callahan whispered, Jesus. Ricks rubbed his neck. We cuffed him. Trenton waited. No words. No shift. Let him out, Ricks ordered. Cuffs off. Trenton rolled his shoulders. No complaint. No speech. I apologize, sir, Ricks said. We should have checked. Trenton locked eyes. You didn't ask who I was, until after you decided what I must be. That landed. Quiet. Precise. McKnight stared down. We followed protocol. Radio silence, restricted lane. Do your job, Trenton said evenly. But I was cuffed before a question. Before ID. That's not protocol. Why didn't you say who you were? Would it have mattered? Silence. A woman's voice, distant, angry, cut the fog. Recording them. By base return, the clip had gone viral. 400K views. Headlines, Retired Navy Commander Wrongly Cuffed, You Tell Me Why. Next day, a photo surfaced, Trenton, full dress whites, saluting at a funeral. Medals gleaming. The internet erupted. This is bias in uniform. He didn't even raise his voice, that's what hurts. Crew faces spread. Debated. Condemned. Even defenders agreed, it never should have happened. Trenton said nothing. No interviews. No spotlight. Just home. Porch. Patching fishing gear. Then came a knock. Captain Everett Sloan. District Commander. Commander Trenton, he said. I'm not here for PR. I wore the uniform. We failed you. Trenton listened. Retraining. Review. Formal apology. But beyond that. We want change. And we want your help. A beat. Talk's easy, Trenton said. Change is harder. You want real change? Yes, sir. Then let's start now. Town Hall. Savannah. Trenton center stage. Not in uniform. Just jeans. Presence. A Marine mom stood. If that were my son, how many times has this happened with no cameras? Silence. A Black Army vet rose. Happens all the time. This time, y'all got caught. Ricks leaned in. This wasn't training. It was perception. Based on race. And I'm sorry. Trenton stood. I led missions. Trained officers. And I still get asked if I belong. Not just by civilians, by uniforms. He paused. This isn't one mistake. It's deep assumptions. We're taught to see threats. Somewhere we started seeing the wrong faces. That's not instinct. That's taught. And it can be untaught. He looked at Ricks. You want to fix this? Stop calling fear safety. New clip. Trenton with high school ROTC. A kid asked, what kept you from getting angry? He smiled. I've got grandkids. Anger's easy. What they need is grace. Power without fear. No yelling. No drama. Just truth. No TV. No book. Just visits, training bases, academies, departments. As a teacher. He always started. Close your eyes. Picture a threat. Who did you see, and why? Back in Savannah, the Mercy Belle sails twice a month. Sometimes with a kid aboard. When they ask, why'd they do that to you? He answers, because some haven't learned to see beyond what they expect. But you can. On the C4TH, training changed. They asked harder questions. One day, Rick's visited. No press. Just two men. A porch. I thought I knew leadership. I didn't. Not until that day. Then it wasn't wasted, Trenton said. They sat. Quiet. And the lesson lingered. Not in hashtags. Not in headlines. Not in viral clips or breaking news. But in policy rooms. In training sessions. In whispered conversations between officers learning to see differently. It lingered in hesitation. The kind that stops a hand just long enough to reconsider. Because dignity isn't bulletproof. It shatters fast. But trust? Trust is built like stone, layer by careful layer. Leonard Trenton never shouted. Never pleaded. He showed up with presence, and that was louder than any protest. They listened, not out of guilt, not from orders, but because the truth carried weight. And in that weight, something shifted. Not all at once. But enough to matter. Months passed. Headlines faded. But what happened on that foggy morning stayed alive in the places that mattered. In classrooms. In roll calls. In early morning briefings where instructors began to say, ask first. Act after. Leonard Trenton became more than a name. He became a case study. An example. A turning point. The Coast Guard added a new protocol, intent confirmation pause, born from that very moment. Before cuffs. Before escalation. A breath, a question, a pause. They didn't name it after him. They didn't have to. In police academies across the country, his story became a training module. Not just about race. About judgment. Misjudgment. And how to rebuild what gets lost in its wake. At the Naval War College, a full seminar was dedicated to the incident, command presence versus cultural assumption. It was standing room only. And Trenton? He never lectured with fury. He showed up. Sat across from cadets and rookies. Told them what it feels like to have your service ignored. Your silence mistaken for threat. Your dignity wrapped in plastic cuffs. Some days, it was hard. Reliving it. Watching students flinch as he described the moment they missed who he was. But other days, something glimmered, a recruit asking a better question. A young woman writing a letter home about what she learned. A changed mind. The Mercy Belle sailed on. Quiet mornings. Fog sometimes. Trenton always steady at the helm. Not just fishing. Mentoring. One kid at a time. One day, a boy named Tyrese, 14 and sharp-eyed, looked up from his reel. You ever get mad you had to go through all that? Trenton adjusted the motor. Mad's easy. Staying mad don't fix anything. But making sure you don't go through it. That's where I put my energy. Tyrese nodded. Looked back out to sea. The world didn't change overnight. It never does. But in the slow churn of tides and tides of slow change, it moved. And somewhere between a fogged-up morning and a boy with questions, trust, layer by layer, kept getting built. Leonard Trenton never asked to be the teacher. But he showed up. And that was enough. Weeks later, Trenton sat in a closed briefing at the Department of Homeland Security headquarters in Washington, D.C. This wasn't a media moment, it was internal. Chairs filled with brass and badges, suits with pins, voices trained for decision-making. But none of them spoke while Trenton walked to the front. "Gentlemen," he began, voice steady, "I'm not here to shame you. I'm here because you asked for the truth, and I've lived it." He shared data. Instances. Quiet testimonies from other veterans. Patterns that matched his own. Not anecdotal. Systemic. At the end of the table, Deputy Director Maya Green leaned in. "Would you serve on a national task force? Help shape future engagement policy?" Trenton hesitated. Then nodded. "If it means others won't have to be humiliated to be heard, yes." Over the next months, he flew between agencies, sometimes in uniform, often not. He helped write the language for new policy on bias response protocol, interagency respect enforcement, and veteran identification checks. He didn't seek cameras. But cameras followed anyway. A documentary was quietly commissioned. Not a dramatization, just interviews. With Trenton. With the crew of the C4TH. With recruits now trained on the Trenton Pause, a real name, given by those who used it. Because words alone weren't enough. Behavior had to change. Meanwhile, Savannah changed too. The Civic Center where the first town hall had been held erected a small bronze plaque in the foyer. It bore no picture. No title. It read, "Ask first. Act after. In honor of Leonard Trenton." And the kids? They kept coming. From school groups. From Navy youth mentorship programs. From communities where trust in uniform had been cracked for generations. He took them out on the Mercy Bell. Told them stories. Let them steer. He taught them to ask better questions. About the world. About themselves. One girl, maybe 11, asked him, "Were you scared?" Trenton looked at the waves. Then at her. "Only of staying silent when I should speak." And she nodded, like that answer settled something deeper than fear. The world kept spinning. Protests came and went. Elections shifted. But somewhere, because of a man who stood calm in cuffs and chose grace over fury, thousands began to see with new eyes. Because dignity may be fragile. But example, that kind of example, is enduring. And long after the headlines dimmed, Leonard Trenton was still teaching. Quietly. Steadily. Unshakably. By the time the C4TH returned to dock, the video had already gone viral. The woman's phone footage was raw, shaky, windblown, unfiltered. But it said everything. A black man in cuffs. Calm. Quiet. Compliant. Surrounded by armed officers rifling through his boat. Then the reveal, decorated Navy commander. 22 years of service. Silence. Cuffs removed. A stiff apology. And that haunting quote, "You didn't ask who I was, until after you decided what I must be." The caption on the video read, "Retired Navy Commander Leonard Trenton. Wrongly cuffed. You tell me why." In under 6 hours, it had 400,000 views. 10 hours in, it was national news. By morning, it was a national reckoning. Online, Trenton trended. His uniform photo, white dress blues, rows of ribbons. Circulated with words like hero, dignity, grace under pressure. News anchors debated the incident. Opinion pieces flooded in. Veterans groups issued statements. Racial equity organizations launched campaigns. But Trenton? He stayed silent. He returned to his modest home in Savannah. Spanish moss hanging heavy outside. Porch sagging in the right places. His phone buzzed endlessly, former shipmates, admirals, journalists, even a congresswoman who once visited his unit overseas. He ignored them all. Until one knock came he didn't expect. Captain Everett Sloan. District Commander. Crisp uniform, tight jaw. "Commander Trenton," Sloan greeted, offering a hand. Not here as PR. I came to speak man to man. Trenton wiped his hands on a fishing rag. Then speak. You were wronged. There's no spin. Our procedures failed you. Worse, our assumptions did. But I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking for your help. Trenton didn't blink. You want change, Captain. Change doesn't start with words. It starts with listening. Sloane nodded. Then let's begin. And so it did. Trenton began speaking, not on camera, not in sound bites. At training centers. Coast Guard bases. Police academies. DOJ briefings. Rooms full of recruits. Young. Curious. Sometimes skeptical. He never shouted. Never lectured. He just asked. Close your eyes. Picture a threat. Who did you see? And more importantly, why? That question, called the Trenton Pause, became part of a new federal training module. Mandatory. Some resisted. Others wrestled with discomfort. Most listened. And back in Savannah, a plaque was quietly installed at the Civic Center, where the first town hall erupted in applause weeks prior. It read, Ask first. Act after. In honor of Leonard Trenton. On the water, the Mercy Belle still left the dock. Still fished. Still offered sanctuary. Sometimes, Trenton brought youth from local schools on board. One boy asked, Why'd they do that to you? Trenton looked out over the sea. Because some people haven't learned to see past what they expect. But you can. Weeks passed. Headlines faded. But something deeper remained. Change didn't go viral. But it stuck. Because dignity may be fragile. But when worn with grace, it becomes unbreakable.